Hi, today I'm going to go over how to set up a spreadsheet so that you can see the average duration between calls made on Kixie. This is all going to start by creating a webhook in your Kixie account under Manage Webhooks. So we click down here, it gets to our webhooks, and we're going to add a webhook. This is going to be the end call webhook. We have a few events to choose from. We're going to do real time, all direction, all result. So we're going to name this end call average duration. And then we're going to go and create a series of zaps. We're actually going to create two zaps. One is going to be the end calls app, and that's where we log the call. The other one is going to be the daily average duration report. That's where we create our report and we send it out. So we have our webhook ready to go. We just need to input the URL. We'll get that from Zapier over here. So first we create a webhook, and this is just a regular webhook. We're going to do just catch hook. We set it up, and then when we test the trigger, it's going to give us the actual hook. We copy that, and we're going to place it right here under webhook URL. Okay? So we can copy and then paste. Okay? And then we're going to want to populate some data so that we can work with the actual webhook. So this is the data that populates, and you can do this by simply calling any number on your Kixie account, and it'll generate end call data. And we're going to use this because we're going to fill it in down here. So here we're going to have some filtering. You do want to filter right after the first step. That is advisable, and we just want we don't want to get incoming calls and missed calls. So we want that to be and. So we don't want to have incoming missed calls be recorded on our sheet. We're going to format the date and time to whatever you want, just to make it a bit easier to read. And then finally, we're going to do a utilities format where, and this is probably one of the most difficult steps, and this is where we have to search through our spreadsheet and pull the IDs of every single sheet, input them here, and correspond them to the agents that pertains to. And then we have a lookup. We'll go over that in just a second. So as we create our spreadsheet, what we're going to do, you can break it up into teams if you like. You put the first and last name of the agent, okay? And that will correspond to one set down here. So this first one, under team 1, this is going to correspond to 111-1 and -2. Each agent needs 2 tabs. This can get kind of long, but once you set it up, it does work really well. So under tab 1, this is going to be the data collection. So this is where Zapier will put all the data. We'll set that up too. And then under this second tab, that's where we reorganize the data and input some formulas so that we can calculate when the end time was based on the duration and the start time. And that'll also get us our time between calls. Up here, we calculate how many calls there are. And all this is put together so that on the totals, we can have our first call, our last call, the average duration between calls, and total calls. Okay, throughout this spreadsheet, we do employ the indirect function that is to pull data from different sheets down here. So you do need to refer to, so this one is going to pull the data from cell F1, okay, on the B column in spreadsheet or sheet 111-2, column B, and then it's going to pull the data number from F1 from that same sheet and then add 1 to it, okay? And that's going to give us our last call. So if we look, we have 111-2. We go to that sheet. So it's going to be column B and then F1 plus 1. So F1 plus 1 is going to be 29. So that'll be 30. 30 will bring us down to the last time the call was made. So if we go back here, we can see it's 3:23:34. Okay? And that's how we get the last call. The first call is simply 111-2B3. You can see that's our first call. Now this spreadsheet is set up, and this spreadsheet has gone through different kind of evolutions to try and streamline it. Right now, the way this is working is I'm taking the information and I'm sorting it from this sheet right here. So this collects all the data here, and then I take it, and what I'm doing is I'm sorting it so it's in numerical order. That way, if the calls ever get out in order as it's reported by Zapier, this will put them back in order. So on the first sheet that I'm recording from Zapier, I'm recording the start time of the call and the duration. We'll get back to that. And then on this second sheet, as we have these two pieces, this is what this whole sheet is based off, the average duration between calls. What we're doing is we're calculating how much time the agent has spent between the end time of the call and the start time of the next call. We take all those calls, we average that time so that you get one clean number. As this happens every day, and presuming agents take the same lunch period or maybe longer lunches, what you're going to do is you're going to get a lot of data about how much time is happening between calls. And we can see the first call was at 8:13, lasted 20 seconds, and the next call was at 8:49. 36 minutes in between that call that will affect, and we can see an hour and 31, presumably maybe an agent took a lunch there, 3 hours. And this is going to be a way that you can kind of see the activity of your agents. It's good for call center management or when you have a lot and a manager needs to kind of oversee what's happening. So going back to the totals, it gives us this nice clean number. There's an if error in there just to make everything very clean if there's no data in there so you don't get errors. And this is the formula to do that. Once again, I'm not going to go over exactly everything in here, but you can see it and copy it yourself. Okay, but we're basically using indirect. Indirect refers to, you can use it to refer to another sheet, pull that data in, and you can pull columns and then pull numbers to create, to grab data from very specific columns, allowing you to get data in a dynamic way. Okay, we're going to go back to our end call right here. We format the time and date so that when we put it in there, it looks nice. We have the utilities. This is where when the agent's email comes in, what we're going to do is on the webhook, the data is coming in, and then we use that email to look up the corresponding sheet ID. You can find the sheet ID right here in the end part of the web address. This is a bit tedious, but it'll be worth it. So agent 111-1, this is their ID right here. And so what we're doing is we're going to tell Zapier to take anyone who has this email address, we'll call it this email address, or this agent, we're going to put it on this sheet. And that's how that is collected. Okay? And then once we do that, we're going to create a spreadsheet, excuse me. We're going to look up the spreadsheet row. So what we do is we need to pull the spreadsheet for the day. I'll go through this a little later in this video. Right now, we're going to create that spreadsheet row. So we find the right spreadsheet that corresponds to the day that we're recording the information. And then we go through and we have the worksheet we're going to log it on. That is pulled from the utilities in the formatter. And then we're going to log the call details, the ID. We're going to log out here the output. That is going to be the time that we formatted up above. And then we're going to log the call details duration. This is grayed out just because I've formatted this to protect the information of where I gathered this data. But those are the places that we're going to pull this. And then it will put it right here. And then it gets reorganized right here through the sort function. Okay. And that's the basic way that we record information. We first have to, um, excuse me, once again, we have to get the information from Kixie by putting the webhook in. We filter out the incoming missed calls, and then we're going to format the data. So format the date and time. So it comes in this UTC time. We're going to format it to this. This is a little bit easier to deal with. And then we're going to format this other date and time. And then finally, we have our utilities. And there is personal information of the agents that have been set up prior to this sheet, but that'll be in the setup action. If you haven't done that, you can look up how to set up a utilities formatter where we look up the agent email that can be pulled from the webhook, and then it can be formatted and translated into the sheet ID that we need to place it to right here. You have to use the sheet ID, you cannot use the name. And then this step is to look up the current worksheet. This looks up our current worksheet. I'll show you how we set that up. And once we have our current worksheet, we are then able to place the data within the proper sheet, within the worksheet. And then that data will get further translated, formatted, sorted. We'll get an end time in there and a time between calls. And then we have this call counter. This allows us to see, and we use the formulas on this page to use that. Sometimes we add one, sometimes we take two away, all to get to that number of how many calls, and so we can calculate the average duration. And then we do want to send this report every day. So we trigger this every day. We create a spreadsheet within Google, and we do this by copying our template that we create, okay? And then we append it with the current date, and that gives us a unique title. And then after we do that, we're going to take that sheet that was created, and we're going to log it in a simple spreadsheet with our name, any name you want, and then the ID of the sheet. And the key to this is you do logs the name, logs the ID, and the way we're going to find it is by doing a bottom-up search. So we just search for the name, do a bottom-up search, and that always gets us the most recent sheet to log the information. Create a spreadsheet row in our example account lookup. Moving back here, we delay it for the course of the day. I believe I have this delayed for 22 hours. So I create it at 1 a.m. and basically send it at 11 p.m. And then we want to find the file within Google. So I'm going to use my email address. That's where I have it. I search this file name with the current day's date. This will allow me to get the file. And then in the next action, when I'm sending the email, I can refer to that information. And then we can send an email out, name it, label it, and then we pull the file down here. Okay? And in this spreadsheet, this is where we look up the spreadsheet row. So that's where we look up that reference. And this is where we do the bottom up search, which gives us the most recent sheet. And after all that, we have a report that we can send out daily to a set amount of email addresses that will get us the first call, the last call, the average duration, and the total calls. And this is a good way. Within this one in particular, we do have different teams. This is the most aggressive team. They work approximately 7 to 4. And they do a lot of calling. As you can see, 500 plus calls down here. And that gives them a way to kind of assess each agent's productivity throughout the day. Thank you, and please let us know if you have any questions. Hope this has been informative.